My name's Karl Letten. I'm Sustainability Manager at Montfort University, just up the road. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview about the work that's gone into our travel plan, drivers behind it, and some of the steps we've taken to encourage our staff to adopt more low-carbon travel. I don't know if it's the right way or the wrong way, but it's the way that we've taken and the approach we're implementing. I'm happy to take any questions as well. So a little bit about us. We're just up the road, city centre campus. We do have Beaumont Park, which is our sports area, up at Beaumont Leys. 23,000 students, just over 3,000 staff. Most of those live in the city. So in terms of impact, that's an awful lot of people moving around on a daily basis to and from the campus. So we look to try and address that as far as we can. We have commitments around sustainability and the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and we are the only university in the UK to be a global hub for one of those SDGs, so peace, justice and strong institutions. So we have just over 3,000 staff, but we have 1,000 parking spaces, which creates a few issues. And it tends to be the thing that most people complain about is the lack of parking spaces. So whenever we do surveys, it always comes out as the big thing that people complain about. And I suppose some of the drivers that we have around responding to issues around travel and also climate change comes from our declaring of a climate emergency back in 2019. So through that, we adopted some net zero targets for our emission sources. So scope 1 and 2, basically energy and our own vehicles. So we aim to be net zero by 2032, which is 8 years away, which is not very long at all. So we're focusing a lot on that at the moment. And then we aim to be net zero by 2045 for all other emission sources. And that includes our business travel, staff and student commute. We also measure and report UK students travelling to study at DMU, and we also measure and report international students travelling and studying at DMU. So we report all of those emissions. So we like to think we try and have a comprehensive approach to our management and reporting of emissions. So our travel plan, I suppose, is a mixture of carrots and sticks. We find that balance kind of helps to focus people's minds and also to encourage more sustainable behaviours as well. So with that large number of members of staff, we have 1,000 car parking spaces and we have permit allocations for those car parking spaces. So what we say is that if you live within 2 miles of the campus, you don't get a parking permit. So we've said that transport links within the city are good enough that if you live that close to the campus, you can get public transport, you can walk and you can cycle to get to the campus without taking your car. That circle is not to scale. So it took me ages to try and work that out. So I just left it in there. It's not to scale. So it's roughly 2 miles from campus. And if we are encouraging staff members and also students to think about how they're travelling, we want to get them out of their cars and we want to make that first time that they do that a pleasurable and easy experience for them. So if they're leaving their car behind, it's the first day they thought about switching to a low carbon method of travelling. We want to make that as easy for them as possible and as seamless in terms of getting into campus, having somewhere to leave their bike, shower facilities, etc., etc., so they can get to work on time and in a decent state as well. So what we try and do is try and make it a good place for the cyclists. So we have lots of facilities, got about over 700 spaces for cyclists. We have free repair stations on campus. So if you have some mechanical knowledge, we've got screwdrivers, tyre levers, etc. So you have a fault with your bike, we've got all the equipment you need, so you don't need to carry that around with you when you come onto campus. We also have a lot of shower facilities and lockers as well. So if somebody is cycling a fairly long distance, they're a bit hot and sweaty when they get to campus, they can have a shower, they can store all their kit and then still get to their office on time and in a decent state, not all bedraggled and hot and sweaty. We also want to support people in that transition from using their car to a low carbon alternative. So what we do, we offer a loan scheme for staff. So it's free, and it's a free bike lock and loan scheme. So staff just have to email us, say they're starting to think about cycling in. So we say, great, we can give you a decent bike lock. They're about £60, and then a set of lights as well. So the idea is that we give those to them, they use it. If they're going to leave DMU or they no longer use it, they then return it back to us, and we can then recycle and reuse it and then give it to other members of staff who want it. I mentioned about the repair stations for people who have some mechanical knowledge. If you have absolutely no mechanical knowledge whatsoever, we offer Dr. Bike sessions. So we run those through Northside Bikes. So if you haven't got a clue how to fix your bike and you've got a fault, you can bring your bike onto campus, book a schedule or a slot in one of our Dr. Bike sessions and get your bike repaired. So it's then in a roadworthy state for you to continue travelling into DMU. Little valve lights as well, high-vis jackets, and we also offer free puncture repair kits if you get a puncture on your way into campus as well. So we try and make the whole experience as seamless and enjoyable as possible. So if they do it once, there is a greater chance that they're going to continue to choose those travel modes to get to campus. Okay. So this was going to be a clip. So we run something called Daria Project. That is Daria. So in the sustainability team, we often have student placements. So Daria did her placement year with the sustainability team, and her big mistake was in the first few weeks telling us that she didn't know how to ride a bike. So my colleague took it upon himself to say that if there was one thing that Daria learned during her 12 months in the sustainability team, it would be how to ride a bike. And bless her, Daria was good enough to let us document that whole journey for her and put it all over social media. So we recorded her from her first tentative efforts to ride a bike to her actually learning and cycling all the way around campus. So she was able to do that with support from City Council and their cycling team coming out, supporting her. Like I say, we recorded all of it, put it all over social media, and now it's developed into the Daria Project. So we offer free training with the City Council for our students and our staff. They just need to sign up and take part. So the research we found is that 1 in 8 adults don't know how to ride a bike. So we wanted to address that, and we also found that doing some research with our international students, that ratio is even higher. So a large number of our international students don't know how to ride a bike. So through the Daria Project, we provide those students with a really effective and cheap way of getting around the city by learning to ride a bike.
Yes.
Believe it or not, we do have large numbers of bikes abandoned on campus. They are usually fairly good bikes as well. At the end of term, it's amazing how many bikes are just left and abandoned on some of the storage facilities that we have. So what we do, we put messages on that to say that if it's not moved within 6 weeks, we're going to remove it. We take it away, put it into some of our storage space, and then we work with Sue Ryder, who run a refurbishment project with one of the prisons. So the abandoned bikes get refurbished, and then Sue Ryder either donate them to community groups or sell them on. So it's a nice sort of virtuous circle with what happens at DMU. We also try and offer discounts through SmartGo, which is really good for us. SmartGo provides some really good discounts, not just on public transport, through local shops as well. So that's very important for our staff, and we get a good take-up of that as well. And I think one of the important things is that we need to engage with our staff and our students. There's something called a habit discontinuity hypothesis, which means that there are certain times in people's lives when they are more open to changing their behaviours, and one of those is when they start a new job. So any member of staff coming to DMU is in the right mindset to get them to think about their travel habits, their sustainable behaviours or unsustainable behaviours, and get them to think about that. So what we do, we provide staff members with a pack before they actually arrive at DMU on their first day. So before they arrive, we've always started to get them to think about their travel behaviours and whether they can choose more low carbon alternatives to then just driving in. We then reinforce that throughout the year with a whole range of different engagement activities. mainly focused around food, because if my team are organising it, there's going to be an element of food as part of that. So whether that is a free breakfast if you cycle in, so we had one of those on yesterday. So we have that, we have drop-in sessions, tea and biscuits, and we also run something called Pizza for the Planet as well, where we try and engage students in sustainable travel as well.
Great.
And all of those activities are really important, but it's also important that you're able to measure and report back. So you've got a sense of whether those initiatives you're implementing are actually working or not. So we do that through an annual travel survey. And this is some of the data that we collect around those travel choices from our staff members. So trend was kind of going in the right way, and then we had a blip around 21, 22. But again, it gives us a good idea. There's that phrase that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So doing something like annual survey is a really good idea for providing us with a snapshot on transport choices by staff and our students as well. And we are starting to find that a lot of our students are now commuting into the city rather than living in the city to try and keep their costs down. So that's something we're going to have to address and have a look at in the not too distant future. And options for the future is something that we include within our travel survey as well. So the travel survey isn't just about collecting data about their travel habits or modal choice. It's also an opportunity to get feedback from them about some of the things that we can implement to help them to change their travel behaviours. And I've just included some of those up there. And I mentioned earlier about our net zero targets. So this is a graph which shows carbon emissions from all those different sources. So the trend is kind of in the right way. We still have a bit more to do to get us down to zero, but a lot of the initiatives we are starting to implement or continuing to implement are having a positive effect. People are still moaning about the car parking, but our carbon emissions are going the right way, so are modal choices as well. And finally, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about our projects and initiatives, I'm not all over social media, but members of my team are all over social media. So they're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're also on TikTok. I've got no idea how to use TikTok, but people in my team do. So if you want to find out some of the projects we're doing and initiatives, do give us a like and a follow through those channels. Okay. Thank you.
Is it right to ask them a question?
Yeah,
is that right?
Sure. Is that okay, Rob?
Yeah, is that right? Really inspiring stuff, by the way, just in terms of pulling some great ideas together, pulling people together and trying to make a change, and it's how you have an impact. One of the things he talked about was a bunch of free things that you offer.
Yeah.
How have you gone about funding that? Was it an easy task, or is it, you've had to go and grab that money from somewhere?
So initially when all that was first set up, it was done through the income from car parking. So that was how a lot of these initiatives were started up, because there is a cost to park at DMU. So all that income was ring fenced, and all of that income was then used to set up a lot of these initiatives.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for most of this stuff because it was set up years ago. We just continued to run it and develop it. And a lot of the things is just an initial upfront cost. So for the free lights and the locks, it's just a one-off payment. So you buy a lot and then you just continue to recycle them amongst staff, so that when they leave, they return them and then you can just hand them out to other people as well.
And then a separate question in their mind. You're obviously in Leicester City. Local authorities can have a massive impact on what you actually do, particularly around travel plans. What are the major barriers or challenges or things that you would like to change or hidden around the city that would help deliver this even further?
I think, I'd like to say we do have a really good relationship with City Council.
Yeah.
We work very closely with them. We've accessed their grant schemes before, when we've had Dr. Bike sessions that they've helped us to organise, and the Daria Project as well. Without City Council, that wouldn't happen. I think we've probably got to the point now where we've hit a bit of a plateau in terms of behaviours, and I think there's probably a bigger prompt that's needed to get people to think about how they're travelling and how they need to look at alternatives. So, not sure how popular this is going to be in the room, but the workplace parking levy, I think something around that would perhaps prompt people to start thinking about travel behaviours and the things they can do around changing that and reducing those carbon emissions.
Information.
Okay.